I would say that the issue that I have with sociology, among many things, is that it's more or less openly. I would almost say that as follows: whether you are critical of a present day sociologist or you're sympathetic to it, both sides would agree that there's a lot of ideological or political bias. The first camp would say it's a bad thing because we ought to be a science of social life. The other half would say it's a good thing because we're supposed to be advancing what Christian Smith, a Notre Dame sociologist, describes as the sacred project of American sociology, which he wrote a book about it. And this is a preeminent, very meritorious sociologist, Christian Smith. In 2014, he wrote this book where he basically describes that the mainstream of American sociology is a kind of a political activist project of the left-wing persuasion, obviously, that masks itself as a neutral science.
And was that a critique of sociology? Or was he saying that the masking is appropriate?
Right. I think it was, most people would look at it as a critique of sociology. He's he's a sociologist of religion, so he's probably more trying to be neutral about it, and just understanding and maybe arguing that we ought to be honest about it and own it if that's what we want to do. But no, he's critical of that. He definitely was suggesting we ought to be return to a more neutral and scientific approach.
I don't know that book.
Okay,
so forgive me, but help me a little bit then with the ideas. Was he saying that there was a lack of viewpoint diversity within sociology? Is that central to the thesis?
Absolutely.
When we track viewpoint diversity on the dimension of ideology,
mm-hmm.
we find that sociology is one of the disciplines that is most imbalanced
yeah.
between people who identify politically left and politically right.
Mm-hmm.
At HXA, of course, we care about viewpoint diversity on a variety of dimensions,
mm-hmm.
but that dimension of ideology is a very important one to us.
Mm-hmm.
And sociology, from our studies at least, suggests that it's one of the most extremely unbalanced fields.
Sure.
So in that context, what do you see about viewpoint diversity? What do you see about viewpoint diversity in sociology? How does it affect the study of society?
Yeah. Well, it creates taboos, topics that you are not allowed to touch, or you are supposed to talk about certain things only from a certain perspective. There's a recent article by two excellent heterodox sociologists, also members of Heterodox Academy, John Iceland and Eric Silver from Penn State University, where they point out how the research on inequality, especially racial inequality, is entirely dominated by this sort of systemic racism type of perspective, or sort of a critical race theory approach, that you cannot consider other factors that might explain these outcomes, like just pure class differences, educational attainment, and those type of things. You cannot consider cultural differences in socialization, which in other fields are pretty okay.
Rather ironic that one couldn't use class analysis to talk about race.
Yeah, that it's all about the kind of a sort of white supremacy type of thing. So I would say overall that sociology, when I arrived in graduate school, there were more vibrant discussions about, like, even I think it was in the 70s, but William Julius Wilson had the Declining Significance of Race book, and that became a little bit, fell out of favor, but his later research looked at the dynamics of deindustrialization and family disruption as causes of the sort of underclass formations. These type of topics are now sort of taboo, or even like criminology or crime, which is my area. You don't see serious efforts to explain these days in sociological literatures why is there so much violence lethal violence, for example, happening in this country in poor communities. How to address it. Instead, the focus has shifted into how bad the police are, how terrible the criminal justice system is, and so on. So it's become much more of this sort of social justice advocacy kind of discipline rather.